Hello, hello. I'm in my garden with blue gold, and I just got up and I woke up formulating sentences again. It's an automated mechanism that is happening in my brain. I'm always in conversation with someone and always trying to help, and I believe that the energy of that imaginary conversation is very real, and I imagine that it is going over to that very person who I'm in conversation with. Whether it's someone on this side or on the other side doesn't matter. It's energy. This is energy related. And the energy will be received. This is what it feels like. This is what I feel. And there are so many things that I think about every day, all the time. So many things that I dream about. And last night I dreamed about a bunch of jumble. Much of our dreams is very, very jumbled up. I would say most of it, like 80-90% is completely jumbled up. That's why it appears very crazy. It is like random, I have to use that term very loosely because there is no such thing as complete randomness. It's a, it's a randomness is always what appears to the receiver. It really isn't random. That's another story. But it is most of it is just like loose connections that are just. It's like a screensaver. When we dream, it's very, very important that it jumbles itself completely up and like a puzzle pieces, that are all jumbled up and that make connections where there are no connections, not in terms of meaning, semantics. So it's just a bunch of jumble, and it plays with itself. It's a self-playing type of childlike jumbling up of things. Children are much more into that. They and chimpanzees too. They are learning words, and they're creating new words out of the words they have learned, and it's just a natural mechanism, of intelligence to play with words and to make new ones. And you see something that you don't know what it is, and you give it the only vocabulary that you have. And the brain also does it unconsciously, of course, but most of it is just like it's completely jumbled up, and it needs to do this in order to heal. So, and in some cases it plays a little bit with different things and tries to dock onto different things that it just wants to try it out, how it feels. Sometimes we have great innovations that come out of dreams because of this, because the brain, when it is in a relaxed form, is not afraid of social rejection. So, and that's also what Jiddu Krishnamurti is talking about. A very important subject. I listen to his audio tapes every night before I go to sleep. I fall asleep listening to them. I feel such deep gratitude to Jiddu Krishnamurti, Dr. Alan W. Anderson, a poet, and Dr. David Bohm, a physicist, a theoretical physicist. And these three people, they are my super angels. They are already on the other side. They already died in the 80s. I don't know about Dr. Anderson. I know that Jiddu Krishnamurti and Dr. Bohm died in the 80s. I think Dr. Anderson was a little bit younger. I don't know if he's still alive. So I have to research this. But wherever he is, I am sending him my deepest gratitude these three people are my friends, and to me, this is such a joy to listen to them, to listen to their very, very serious and very deep inquiries into the human brain, into the mind, into the questions of existence and consciousness. What is consciousness? And I wished everyone would listen to these people, because from everyone out there, it's these three people who have the most of substance to teach to the entire humanity. So that's why I tell people about them, I recommend them. I don't know if everyone can understand them and really make sense out of what they're talking about, because they're already coming from a completely different mindset altogether already as a starting point. So I think most people, in order to get into this, they probably have to start somewhere else. They have to read other material first before they can really get into the depths of it. But it doesn't hurt to listen to them anyway, even if it's confusing at first. If you listen to them every day and just make it a habit of meditation, maybe your connections will start to loosen up, and the fear of social rejection will fade away in time. So give it time, don't rush yourself. They are definitely the best, but most people can more relate to, let's say, most people can more relate to Jiddu Krishnamurti or Eckhart Tolle. Jiddu Krishnamurti is not related to Jiddu Krishnamurti. They come from the same region in India, and they even come from the same school, the Theosophical Society that was founded by Helena Petrovna Blavatsky, a Russian philosopher and parapsychologist. And then later, the 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 management was the entire management and the organization of this group was taken over by Annie Besant from England, and she discovered Jiddu Krishnamurti when he was very young. He was like 10 years old in India. His father was working just as an employee for the Theosophical Society, and she saw his two children, his two young sons, and one of them is Jiddu, and she immediately recognized who he is. She recognized the soul, and that is the soul of the Buddha. And he came back, and in this very impoverished situation, and his father was neglecting them, and he was, whatever money he was making, keeping it for himself, and wasn't even feeding his children very well. And they were undernourished and quite malnourished, very, very skinny, skin and bones, and they looked miserable. Their lives were miserable. They're very unhappy. But they found something in this Theosophical Society. They found a sense of belonging and safety there, and they were very, very dedicated to be their friends and to be devoted to them. And Annie Besant saw that, and she was just delighted to see this commitment of the boys, and particularly Jiddu, what he was already saying at a very early age, the wisdom he already had, and the questions he asked. It's very critical to ask good questions. You can already see when someone asks very good questions that they are very serious about inquiring deeper into this material. There are a lot of gurus out there. There are a lot of self-proclaimed proclaimed gurus out there, and there are a lot of people who want to feel power. This is a recurring situation. People want power, and it is not a good thing. It is not very helpful for them or anyone who listens to them. So anyone who feels the need for power is already not empowered. Is already it's already dabbling on the bottom. So that's why I say, when you talk to people, make sure that other person is humble and grateful. Humbleness is gratitude. It's deep gratitude, and humbleness is someone who really listens to you and who feels you, who really feels you and who listens very carefully to what you say. It doesn't matter what it is. I could sit with someone and I I bubble a lot when I talk to people. I talk way too much. And let's say someone else sits there next to me and really listens, no matter how much I bubble away, or it could be it could be some superficial things I talk about, or it could be or seemingly superficial. It could be talking about this tablet here and how amazing it is. But if you feel like that other person that you sit with is really, really listening to you and asks you questions back, gives you feedback on what you said, and maybe gets deeper into it, or maybe has something interesting to say about it, you can draw an interesting question out of almost any subject. You could talk about pornography and the different positions that people have. Yeah, you can turn this whole conversation into something interesting. It wouldn't matter where you are in whatever society you are in, with enough skill. And I don't have that skill. That's why I'm such a party spoiler. I don't have the skill to adapt to society very well. But that's what I'm saying. The real teacher has that ability. The real teacher is able to turn any conversation into something very positive and bring out your own abilities that you are hiding, that you think you don't have. He will bring out the inner child in you, and he will get you to ask questions that come way out of your comfort zone. So that is the real teacher, and sometimes it hurts a little bit, maybe, you know. The best teachers are those who make us a little bit uncomfortable sometimes. So the real teacher listens in depths, and he will find things in every subject. Because he sees everything, how everything is interconnected and interrelated. The trees, for example, that's just my major example. Trees. People take all of this for granted. Trees. We are surrounded by a lot of trees. That makes people think, oh, it's just there in infinite abundance, and people think they can chop them off. They can chainsaw every day. I hear people chainsawing every day. And it is such a horrible, nasty sound, chainsawing. I have to put earplugs in. I don't want to hear it. And this, taking things for granted, this lack of gratitude that I see in society, and people just take and take and take, and then they go home, they feel depleted, they feel like they're lacking resources, that's what they feel like. And then when they hear about environmentalists, protecting the forests, then the only thing they can see is they can see that they're taking away our jobs, they're taking away our right to take the resources, and because they think it's endless, 'cause that's what the Christian church teaches them, anti-teaches them. And so they believe that because it's convenient to believe, it's very inconvenient to believe the opposition, the people who care. So yeah, this is this is very critical, and they don't realize how much we all, our skin, our skin is not Republican, our skin is not Democrat, it's not Tea Party or Socialist Party. Our skin cells, they just want to live. They want to live and they want to be loved. And so does this tree here, the cedar tree, And for our skin to exist, this cedar tree here has to exist too, And not just this tree, but this planet should be covered with 80% or 90% of forest. So most of it is ocean, but from the land mass, it should be covered with, I think it should be covered with 95% forest or more. That would be ideal, because the more trees we have, the more oxygen we have for our skin. Our skin breathes oxygen. I think the skin surface of our bodies is the main oxygen intake, and the trees breathe out oxygen. So it's extremely important for us. Extremely. This is our life's foundation, people. Our life's foundation. It's the foundation for all life. For him too. And for the rabbits and the squirrels and the chipmunks. For all the beings. For the deer, for the wolves. They chase the wolves out of the residential areas. Because they were in competition with them. For the cattle and for the deer that they wanted to hunt, and for just space and whatnot, horror, false stories and that were told about canine animals. I know, I grew up in the 60s, so I know what the stories, the fairy tales that were told at that time. Some of them were extremely corporate. The smart fox who is just lurking around the corner just to get you or something. No, no fox is gonna get a child. They might hunt very, very small rodents. That's all. They have to eat. But they don't hurt anyone. They don't hurt children, or I don't know if they hurt a rabbit. Maybe. But that's just the natural life cycle. So it's not, and there's the word evil is completely religious. I always knew it. I always felt it. There's no such thing as evil. Okay, there's mental illness. There's extreme schizophrenia and confusion in the world among humans, but not evil. It's just extreme confusion. And I want to believe what T.L. Swan said. I want to believe that she is right. That all people, including the psychopath and the sociopath and the sadistic people, that they all just want to feel loved and respected. And because they didn't have it, they turn to generating a feeling, a very fleeting, a very false sensation of empowerment, or it's not a power of false sense of power. Just for a few seconds, the sense of power. It doesn't last, and it is an illusion. uh, and then because it falls back into nothingness, because it came from nothingness, it is nothingness. They try to find that sensation that they felt again and again and again, and it just takes over and it gets worse. So what do you think? And she believes that these people can heal once they understand that the track they're on is very hurtful to themselves and to everyone else, that it's just a lie. And Jiddu Krishnamurti is talking about it. So he says he says in general, for people and for anyone, it just takes a realization, a real in this moment, like just to really see it. The moment you really see what it is, where you're coming from, and how things tie in with one another, and how your mechanisms work, your own mechanism, your psychological mechanisms. In that moment, you will be free. You will see it, and you will also recognize your own mechanisms as an enemy, as something that, you know, yeah, using this word loosely. the, you will recognize it as danger. You will recognize sadism, greed for a sensation of power, or a distraction through gore or something. You will see that as a danger to yourself. The moment you see this, for example, I used to distract myself with horror movies. Most people did. It's like sensational, and it's shock and awe, and you get away for a second from your real bleakness that's inside of you. It's a distraction. So in that moment, it kind of like, Ernie saying to Bird, the the faucet is dripping, and Bird says, "Okay, let me turn the vacuum cleaner on," so you don't hear the faucet dripping anymore. So Sesame Street had some very, very interesting parables sometimes. Very, very nice. I'll never forget that. And so that's kind of like this in a way. People turn to horror movies to vacuum sound out the bleakness that they hear un- underneath, that they hear on a daily basis inside of them. The bleakness of boredom, and boredom is not something that is neutral. Boredom is actually a very horrible, horrible feeling. I actually put boredom on the level of helplessness. So I think that's where it should be grouped, on the very bottom of the self-empowerment scale. Esther Hicks has a self-empowerment scale that's quite accurate. So I don't agree with her on everything, but there are some things that are spot on, of course. But it's a different story. It's very corporate, some of the things. It's very corporately convenient what she says, and it takes the same with Yuji Krishnamurti. Esther Hicks and Yuji Krishnamurti, they teach people non-responsibility, and so that's totally not on my wavelengths, and I don't agree with it. But yeah, people drown out things. So I want to believe that Teal Swan is right when she says that people they're just trying to not feel the total helplessness. So I gotta go. Peace out, peace out.